to learn a lot about the sensory problems. They are real. Now, there's a really good database you can go on. It's called PubMed, P-U-B-M-E-D. PubMed is abbreviation for public medicine. You type PubMed into Google, and then it'll say, enter PubMed. There's a sponsored link up there that comes up, pubmed.com. That is not the right website. You've got to go into the website that will bring you up the National Library of Medicine. And then another search box will come up, and you can search the summaries of veterinary journals and medical journals free. Another great site is Google Scholar. Go to Google and type in Google Scholar. And now it'll bring up another website, and that kind of cuts out all the garbage that's out on the internet, and you stay in the scientific literature. And you get off what I call a wild net, and get into a more controlled net with a lot better information. Scientists have learned a lot about the abnormalities in the brain. And one of the big areas where you have abnormalities is the circuits in between different brain departments. I kind of like to visualize the brain as an office building. And you're going to have inter-office communications between different departments. And that's where there's problems. And the interesting thing is, this is explaining visual thinking, a lot of word-based tasks are processed in the visual cortex. You see, when you hear a word, you see a word, speak a word, or you think about a word, so you have different parts of the brain turn on, you've got to have inter-office communications in the brain. And this is where there's a lot of problems. In autism, dyslexia, many disorders. Also, you can have the same problem with head injuries. Now, what happens in a condition like autism is the connections simply don't grow. In head injury, they're ripped, especially the long-distance cables. I'm very concerned about all this head concussion stuff with football. I tell you right now, if I had a son, he wouldn't be playing high school football. When you know how much, I study a lot of neuroscience. I get all these neuroscience journals. And knees, yeah, you can fix them, you can wear braces, but you mess up your brain, you are just messed up. You're really, really in trouble. Okay, up at the top of the office building, you have the frontal cortex, where the chief executive officer would be. Now, of course, Organic Valley, we have a more like laid out kind of building, but you're more traditional kind of big corporation. And you've got us techie people call that the suits up in the office, and that's your frontal cortex. In fact, this is the front part of your brain. No memory stored here. It's all association. Boy, that makes you really good at social stuff. And then you got the division vice presidents. That's kind of the language department. And then underneath there, you got all the good geek stuff. Visual thinking, mathematics, all the fun things. Then down there, getting closer to the basement, the human resources department. You've got the amygdala there to stir up trouble. And then, coming into the base of the building, you've got the incoming data lines. A lot of problems there. A lot of scrambling on the auditory lines and the visual lines. And if you're working with very severe autism, these people will often want to touch and smell things because those senses actually still work. Seeing and hearing is a scrambled up mess, and touching and smelling actually works. Those are simpler systems, and they're less scrambled. Okay, this is a route map for all the inter-office connections in the brain. Okay, let's call it brain airways. Okay, over here on the right-hand side, we got the East Coast. In the middle here, this is the emotion center, that's Chicago, and out here is Silicon Valley. So, boy, if you didn't have some autism genetics, we wouldn't have any electricity. We wouldn't have any computers. We wouldn't even have a building here, a modern building. Because the real social people didn't make the first stone spear. The thing is, a little bit of that autistic trait gives you some advantages. Too much gives you a giant disability. So what happens kind of in autism on brain development? Well, we cancel a few flights up here on the East Coast, and we cancel a few flights to Chicago. Now, one of the things, the problems that causes, when we cancel flights here, I lose the ability to multitask. And this is the most fragile part of the brain, the frontal cortex. When I cancel too many flights to Chicago, I lose what's called frontal cortex top-down control on the emotion centers. Emotion centers are real primitive down the base of the brain. Frontal cortex does top-down control. And then out here on the West Coast, we make ad flights. And the savant skills. So the basic pattern is losing flights here and adding them out here. But it can be very variable as to how many flights get canceled. You get too many flights canceled, the motor system doesn't coordinate anymore with the visual system. Everything becomes completely, discombobulated up. That's sort of neurologically what's happened. And there's probably about 150 papers right now on this, and every new paper that's coming out is showing that this is still true. Now, there's a type of Alzheimer's where when language gets destroyed, art ability like this comes out of a person with no previous art. And what this shows is language covers up kind of the visual thinking, mathematical thinking, is sort of overshadowed by language. This is a paper published in the journal Neurology, a really respected scientific medical journal. Now, here's a picture of 9-year-olds drew in perspective. Most 9-year-olds don't draw in perspective. When kids get around 3rd or 4th grade, if they're going to have a special ability, that's when you're going to really see it. Kids in special ed often have uneven skills. A lot of the things I'm telling you don't just apply to autism. Don't get hung up on these labels. They are not accurate diagnoses. They are not accurate diagnoses. Okay, if you get tuberculosis, you can go out and do a test for tuberculosis. They'll tell you exactly what strain you've got. But the problem with all these psychological labels is they are behavioral profiles. They are not accurate. There are no lab tests for autism. And right now, all the psychiatrists are fighting over the DMS-5, and they're going to change around the criteria. Nobody sits in a hotel conference room, like the Hyatt in downtown somewhere, although they got those little tables with the skirts. And they're sitting around in there, and they're discussing changing the diagnosis for tuberculosis. Nobody's doing that. I can't wait until they get rid of all this vague stuff and they can do a high-speed brain scan. The other thing, I've had a lot of brain scans done on me. They were like, experimental ones. What's been showing up in the brain scans is showing up also clinically. If a kid's really good at drawing, let's work on enhancing drawing. What saved me in elementary school was art class and embroidery class. And then I finally got petitioned so I could take wood shop. But if I hadn't had those hands-on classes, I would have just been sunk. I think it's really bad that so many schools are taking these classes out. So then these geeky kind of nerdy kids are just getting in trouble. And I was absolutely horrified to find out just the other day the state of Illinois canceled all the funding for FFA. And 6 months ago I just learned that the state of Michigan has canceled their state fair permanently. I think this is really a shame. Because you take some of these kind of nerdy, geeky kids, a lot of them just, they're great, on farming things. We actually need auto mechanics. We're not doing enough on what a kid's going to do when they grow up. I'm seeing this drive me absolutely, completely crazy. Where are all the old, mildly kind of autistic people? They're all employed. Good jobs. Because they were taught work skills young. I was brought up in the 50s, and that really helped me out. And what's happening to Junior today? He's going down the wrong track. There's sometimes, I think special educators do a fantastic job, especially on the more severe end of the spectrum. But there's often not enough expectations for the other end of the spectrum. Because there are great business leaders that are dyslexic. There are great Silicon Valley leaders they are just as Asperger, which is just mild autism traits. All over half of Silicon Valley's got autism. And now I want to just bring up the whole thing of has autism increased? The kind of mild autism, geeks and nerds, they've always been here. I can think of kids that would be labeled Asperger's today, and they're running businesses, but Junior's not ending up running a business. That makes me nuts. That's just such a waste of a valuable talent, or they're ending up in jail. Okay, my mind thinks in pictures. This is a picture a young man sent to me to show how his mind is a movie camera inside his mind. Well, my mind's just like Google for images, and the movie did an absolutely fantastic job of showing how that works. I have no thought unless I have a picture. And then there's other people where they're auditory thinkers. They're not going to be thinking in pictures. Now, being a visual thinkers helped me on my design work because I could actually build things in my mind. And there is the dip that was, this is the current facility. This is actually on the HBO movie set. And you know how they filmed that picture of all the cow? They had this giant cherry picker, scarier than heck. And this guy got up in this bucket out there. Oh, he couldn't have paid me. The whole thing was shaky. Everything was real scary. And they had duplicated everything exactly off of my drawings. And by the way, the movie is going to be out on DVD on August 17th. And Amazon is already taking pre-orders. Now, I was pretty weird as a kid, because if you look at the movie, you can see that I was real, real weird. And that was all filmed before I took antidepressants. Antidepressants saved me, because what they did is they stopped these horrible anxiety attacks. I was just in constant panic attacks, and stopped them. And how did I sell myself? I sold myself by showing my portfolio. Drawings and pictures of jobs. People thought I was really weird. But when I whipped out my drawings, and this is a drawing that was used back in the mid-70s, Build a Real Project, the same drawings were used by HBO. There's another view of it. Ability gets respect. I had to sell my work and not myself. A really important thing. And that's, I figured that out fairly early on. I love that job. I like to fantasize 1,000 years from now. Some learned archaeologist is going to be discussing what this is used for. And they're going to be discussing its great religious significance. Now, I got all these pictures floating around in my head. How do I form concepts? See, my thinking's very, very specific. And that helped me in my work with the cattle. Because cattle get scared of like a chain hanging down, a reflection, really tuned into sensory detail. Got all these pictures in my head. Well, this young man sent me a picture showing how he's sorting cat and dog pictures into boxes in his brain. In order to form a concept, I have to take specific examples of things I've seen and put it in file folders in my brain. Really important thing. It's specific to general. Most people think top down. You get the hypothesis, and then you just try to shove the data into hypothesis. I think the other way around. I take all the bits and pieces, and I figure out how they fit together to make a puzzle, and I sort them into categories. So I realized my thinking was different when I asked people about church steeples. Back when I wrote Thinking in Pictures in the mid-90s, I started interviewing people about how they thought. And I was shocked to find out that they didn't think the same way I think. I was shocked to find out that a lot of people just see this as a vague, kind of generalized church steeple. I just see specific ones. Now, if I ask house or car, most people can see their own house or car. But I picked out the church steeple, that it's something everybody sees that most people don't pay much attention to. They'll want something you're a little less familiar with. But the visual thinker will just name them off and see them. Somebody who's more verbal won't do that. I see only specific ones, and they come up like Google for pictures. And the movie showed that perfectly. And I'm going to just show you, okay, local ones, famous ones, kind of come up just about this fast, just about like this. Okay, say church steeple, I start the images about, like this.